Hello. Today we are going to talk about the mind. No, not the mind as in the West, but the mind as in Manas from a Vedic perspective. What if I were to tell you that mind is not the brain? Woo! Mind is not the brain? In fact, mind is everywhere in our body. It pervades not only inside our body, but also outside our body. It pervades. And the only area in our body that mind is not active is the nails and the hair. The hair on our head. It's not active on hair, body, any body hair, and nails. It's everywhere. It's an all pervading entity that kind of controls us, and we control it through intelligence. And the, yes, the mind uses the brain as its seat of control. And where is that brain? It's between Shiras and Talu, between the head and the heart palate, right? And this is where it is using the mind, which is everywhere, is using the brain. It is also using the heart. It is because we are more than just our physical body. We are an energetic entity, and mind is part of that energetic entity. What is mind powered by? A mind cannot function without a power, without its engine. So, what powers the engine of the mind? Atma, soul, spirit, which resides in the heart. We can say that the seat of the mind is in the heart because the Atma or the soul that resides in the heart is powering the engine of this mind. And what does the mind do from a Vedic perspective? Mind can generate, circulate emotions. So where is it circulating emotions? In our brain? No, everywhere. Emotions are being circulated in our heart, in our hands, in our fingers, in our legs, in our backside, in our tummy. It's everywhere. Wherever the mind is, it's just everywhere. The only place where it's not generating emotion and circulating is our nails and hair. So without further ado, let's listen to this philosophical lecture about perspective of mind.
So now we're discussing the manas disorders in Ayurvedic and yogic texts. And the reason we use the word yoga, because if you go read Charaka Samhita or Sushruta Samhita or Madhav Nidan, you know how in the Western world you have the medicine and it's all about physical ailments, and then you have psychological and psychiatric disorders, and there are so many of them. How many psychiatric disorders are there? How many psychological disorders are there? It's a completely different branch. Ayurveda really doesn't have a separate manas disorder. For example, a tension headache is a manas disorder. Not being able to sleep is a manas disorder. Feeling angry all the time is a manas disorder. Not being sattvic is a manas disorder. So it's a completely different way of looking at manas disorders. Does it make sense? So there is not separate, like if you were a kapha person, and the demarcation is not by psychology and psychiatric condition. The demarcation, I mean, not that they are not there, there are. For example, you have convulsions, you have there are a few, you know, it is called apasmara. So if you've seen these sculptures of Lord Shiva dancing, it's called Nataraja, in which he's dancing and one of his foot is on one of an asura, a demon called apasmara. Apasmara is convulsion, it's epilepsy. And even most, you would be surprised if you go read these books, a lot of these diseases have come out of devatas. Devata is the like jvara. Jvara is fever. There's whatever 20 kind of fever or whatever different kinds of fevers have come out of Rudra, Shiva. And Apasmara was an actual asura, a demon who was killed by Shiva, and it's manifest as epilepsy and things like that. So when we are in practitioner, we get into all of that. From from the counselor, you have a very small scope. For example, we've already done the insomnia, yes? And I think everybody was clear on insomnia. General anxiety, general stuff we've already done. So what is it that we are concerned with? This you already know. Let's go straight into what is, first of all, it doesn't matter what their psychologist or psychiatrist have said. If a person comes to you and they're depressed and they're anxious or they have a disturbed mind, even if they do not have a prognosis from their a counselor or therapist or neurologist or whosoever they're seeing, remember what is disturbing. If a person is feeling a lot of anger, or they are just too much in grief, they're going crazy in grief, or they're too much, anxiety begets anxiety. Have you heard a person can work themselves up? You see this in children all the time. You have a small child, they want something, and you say, Disha, you'll see that in your little kiddies, right? And they will throw a fit and they work themselves up. You can see with Ishan, he was slightly younger. It's almost like he was deciding whether I need to throw a fit or not. So he would throw a fit, his whole face, you could feel that red rising on his face and eyes becoming big and the lips start quivering. And we say, no, we are not going to do that. We are not going to buy you this or whatever. And then they frenzy themselves up, the children, to this state of their like, no, and then crying and throwing things and going nuts. So if a person tends to be very anxious, and there's nothing wrong with that, but there's what Ayurveda is saying, there is a point where we fuel our anxiety by more anxiety. Does it make sense? And it's not putting down people who have anxiety. That's not what we are talking about. We are talking about when, what was the one slide we did? If you think about something a lot, I'll give you one example. So in Ayurveda, Pitta person is supposed to have 6 to 7 hours is enough, a good sleep for Pitta according to Ayurveda. So I had a client. They said, I don't feel the need to sleep, but I have insomnia. And I said, why do you think you have insomnia? She said, I'm so anxious that I'm only getting 7 hours of sleep. And the doctor says I need 8 hours. This is a Pitta person. So in 1 week, if I'm getting 7 hours, so I'm losing 49 hours of sleep in a month. I don't know how she was calculating. So you're supposed to get 8 hours a day, right? So every night, at least 8 hours. And then in 7 days, what is 8 times 7, whatever, 56. So 56 hours, and I'm only getting 7 hours per day. That means I am losing, I don't know, that 7 hours that I'm losing per week adds up to, in 30 days, I don't know how many. She came up with this number with me, 49 hours a month and 210 hours. So this is a Pitta mind, right? And it was so hard for me not to laugh, because I said, what are the symptoms of you having insomnia? She was well rested. She was exercising. She had a good diet. Everything is fine. But she was more anxious about it because the doctor said she needed 8 hours. But she's a Pitta person. And there is she gets up in the morning. She's completely fresh. She doesn't need the 8 hours. It was a frenzy created because she was told that she needed 8 hours. I said, you don't need 8 hours. 7 hours is enough for you. And that kind of blew her mind. It's like, what? I said, and she was taking a nap. So she was taking a 10-15 minute nap in the afternoon. I said, all you need is, if you feel you're not feeling well, just take a nap. This is your cycle. This is your nightly cycle. And we all have a different, and she's like, you mean, so all her anxiety was coming from the fact that she's not getting. So this is the kind I'm talking about. Yeah. Or if that's a really great example, Jayanti. So with the hair fall and skin, because we can immediately see our hair falling, or we can immediately see skin issues. And with women, with us ladies, anti-aging is like I don't know, billions of dollars of industry. Because when we see, oh my God, gravity, and my breasts are falling, and I have, oh my God, my face is drooping, and I'm getting wrinkles. How am I getting old? Hey, we all get old, but we want to kind of look young. And the point is, it's good to go get a facial and get these things, but when we get anxious about these things, then we actually create more problem. It's a vicious cycle. That's what I'm saying. One thing I wanted to share, and Indiraji, I gave you this, thank you for doing it. I gave you this feedback in your quiz, both in Canvas, also on Slack. So we talked about ekatva and anutva before. So there is a ekatva, anutva also in the yoga process. That's not what we are talking about. This is not ekatva and anutva we are talking about from Ayurvedic. For example, if you're seeing a movie is basically 24 or 48 images that are going very fast. In 1 second, it looks like it's an entire movie. That is or if you're driving a car and and your mind wanders somewhere and then it comes back, but you're still driving the car, you didn't stop. It's like your autopilot takes over. You're able to multitask. That is the quality of ekatva and anutva. Right? Or you're reading a book, but your mind now, as you were reading a book, your mind starts imagining, visualizing what the book is, what the characters look like, right? So that is what we're talking about, ekatva and anutva. And so thank you so much for sharing, for those who did. So this is our first Ayurvedic. Does anyone know, again, Indira, Jayanti, Nandini, again, you'll have to put it in the chat as I cannot hear. Mad, Moha, Matsarya. Does anyone know this? Yeah, so this is also in the yogic texts. So this, in Ayurveda, this is not technically a disease, but it is one of the things that is a precursor that leads to any kind of mental imbalance. So let's start with moha first. I want to do moha first. Moha is like trying to attain a state where your perceptions are altered. Can you think of something that alters our perception? Alcohol, drugs, and I think they just legalized those psychedelic mushrooms somewhere, or did they? Or they're trying to do it? Where was it? I don't remember. Is it Australia? I mean, honestly, I'm all for it. The problem is not the psychedelic substances or alcohol. In a small amount, it is fine. It is when people overdo it. Oh yeah, even in Denver? Awesome. Yeah, exactly. So whether it's alcohol or drugs or anything, yes, social media too. Great, Indiraji, you're absolutely right. Too much social media, to anything that leads to an altered perception or a dreamlike state. Even what to speak of that, I remember, kids, I see that in Ishan, and I've talked to other moms. When kids are on playing video games for hours and hours, they come out with this expression on their face, and they're somewhere else. I don't let, too much. I do that too, Disha. I binge watch, but I make sure that, I put I'll have like an alarm go off. Stop watching. I know. Some of them are so good, you want to keep on watching. I'm watching the 100 right now. So after 3 episodes, I have my alarm go off. No more. Okay. I know, we all do that. But yeah, the point is anything that leads to a dreamlike state. So if you're doing a video game for like an hour or hour and a half, or watching TV or social media, or alcohol or a drug or anything. It is continuously doing it every single day. You stayed up late till 3 a.m. You okay? Hope you're okay. Yeah. So I have alarms go off because I'm so bad at this thing. My alarm goes off at 9 o'clock. So usually there is a class between 8 to 9 or 7 to 8. And 8 to 9 is, clean the kitchen, get ready for sleep. And then we tell Harikatha and stories and read a book and then go to bed usually by 10ish. And that I don't change it for anything. It doesn't matter because, oh my God, no, yeah, you have to be like, even with yourself, you have to discipline. I give you one example, this state. So I'll give you in a little bit. So this is one, and the thing is, our senses, they can handle 1 day, 2 day, even 3 days. When it becomes a habit, it changes our brain chemistry. It changes our senses, and it can manifest in a mental imbalance or where a person ends up, with an actual diagnosis. So this is a precursor. Doesn't make sense? Another is mother. Let's do mother. Mother is very interesting. You know how, I don't know, but I was very pretty when I was young. In my teenager and 20s, I was really beautiful. I'll show you pictures sometimes. I even did in my very early 20s, I did some modeling, just my face and whatnot. I was in television. I was doing some acting in television and stuff like that. Very young. So, at that time, oh no, you should see that. Point is, if I could talk to that Manjulali, if I could talk to that girl and say, oh, you stupid girl, you were so intoxicated by you being beautiful. I had these really long, gorgeous hair that I was so intoxicated by. Oh my God, I'm so pretty. If I could just whack her and say, be a better person. So I wasn't that bad, but I think it's the people that I associated with, the television industry and modeling. But I've seen this with teenagers. People who are born in super rich families, really, really rich families, or people who are born who are extremely beautiful, or even not extremely, even just a little bit beautiful. In this day and age, at least when I was young, being thin wasn't considered beautiful. Now, being thin, at least in India, all actors are zero size. I don't know what's happening there. This intoxication with beauty or power, think of these rock stars who get famous at age 14 and 15 and 16, and they have all these millions of dollars and they're doing these stupid things. There's so many examples. They are kind of mother. They are intoxicated with their rock star power, and I'm pretty and I have money and I'm so famous. This is, or power. People want to be powerful or beautiful or have money. These are like the triggers for society, for powerful people, right? This, too much, a little bit is fine. If you're too much invested in being too beautiful or too powerful or too wealthy or too famous, and that can cause and become a hetu for a mental imbalance. We are clear on mother and moha? And this is a little bit, I don't know how to explain it. Let me think about it. Can you think of an example? You'll again have to type it. Atattva abhinivesha. Absorption in a completely false idea. Actually, I can totally think of it, but I won't record it because that would not be nice. Anybody?
Sometimes when people fall in love, they totally imagine something totally different from what the other person is.
Oh, I can hear you. Yeah, that is amazing. That is great. For whatever reason, when we're in love or we're in lust or whatever, It's like, say you're seeing the person with rose. Oh yes, Jesse, that's an amazing example. That is really, I mean, if you think that it can't get any worse, and it does, doesn't it? But as far as that person is concerned, it's completely right? So this is something, it starts off with absorption in a completely false idea, but it can end up as psychosis, is what Ayurveda says. So, when people have a there is another thing that happens. I don't know if you know about this. Some women, after they give birth postpartum, they can have postpartum psychosis. And there is example of these things in our textbooks. And they can believe that, like all of us who've had babies, we all have had these little things. We will come and see if our baby is still breathing. Yeah, phantom pregnancy too. We have these little, oh my God, is the baby still breathing? Is the baby still alive? Oh my God. Oh, I used to get up. I still get up at night and check on Isha. He's almost 9 years old. But we check like 3-4 times, new moms. Baby okay? Oh my God, what if something happens to the baby? There's like, we have this little fear, but it doesn't get to the point where we become absorbed in a false idea. But once you get absorbed, the people who, for example, the phantom pregnancy that Jayanti is talking about, they get so absorbed in it that their uterus starts expanding. They look pregnant. So from Ayurvedic perspective, mother, moha, and atattva bhinivesh are the precursors that we need to work with. Once they have had a prognosis from their doctor, then we cannot do anything. I'm going to take a 1-minute break and drink some water. So that's part of OCD, right? Obsessive compulsive disorder. One of the things that gets me going, that the word OCD is just thrown around a lot. It is also possible, Dishaji, if a person is undergoing like a Shani Dasha or a Dasha in their Jyotish chart, they can become, some of these symptoms will manifest. And when that Dasha, that karma is over, then they are fine. So they throw around the word OCD just a lot. So here is a slide on mother or intoxication. So in the West, when they talk about intoxication, they are not concerned with intoxication of beauty or youth or power. They only considered with chemical intoxicants, right? So that is one. So there is a correlation. They believe in this too. Except for them, if someone is just too full of themselves and thinks they're so powerful or beautiful or whatever, that is not a problem. That is not a psychological issue. Or if somebody is narcissistic, we've seen these billionaires, they're really narcissistic. That's part of mother, intoxication with wealth, right? But from a Western perspective, only chemical intoxicants are mother. Moha or bewilderment, from Western perspective, so we've talked about our perspective, how moha can be. So word is moha or sammoha. Here in the last here, you will see, it is sammoha, sammohana. So sammohan, have you heard of Pied Piper? Like, or bewitched, somebody is completely bewitched, or, they will say, oh, this girl has completely bewitched you. This witch has completely bewitched you. That is sammohan. It means completely under the spell. That's what it means. But from the Western perspective, we can compare moha to cognitive dissonance. Does anyone understand this cognitive dissonance? Because we're short on time, I can put articles on cognitive dissonance and some examples in the Slack.